Listen closely, because what I'm about to say is going to unsettle something deep within you. It may even make your heart tighten for a moment, not out of fear, but because your spirit will recognize the truth before your mind does. This message is not arriving in your life by accident. It is not random, not coincidental, and certainly not something you stumbled upon by curiosity. You were drawn here, pulled here, summoned here. And the reason is simple. You are in a wilderness season, and heaven is ready to expose why. Yes, that empty feeling you can't explain. The quietness around you. The strange isolation. The way familiar things no longer satisfy. The way people seem distant, distracted, or removed from your life. You didn't imagine any of it. You didn't fall behind. You didn't lose your way. You didn't miss your moment. You were led here. And if you listen with your spirit, you will feel the weight of that, because the wilderness is not a place people wander into. It is a place God draws His chosen ones into when He is ready to refine them, reshape them, and reveal who they truly are. But here's the part you weren't expecting. Your wilderness is not punishment. Your wilderness is not rejection. Your wilderness is not abandonment. It is divine intention. There is something God is doing beneath the surface of your life, something you can't fully see yet. Something that feels uncomfortable but sacred, painful but purposeful. And the very signs that convinced you something was wrong are actually proof that something is being made right inside of you. You've been wondering why everything slowed down, why doors paused, why relationships shifted, why clarity faded, why you felt stripped of what once felt secure. But you're about to understand the wilderness is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of the chapter where you finally become the version of yourself God always knew was hidden beneath the noise, distractions, and old layers that could no longer stay. So before we go any further, breathe for a moment. Let the truth settle, because this message is going to uncover the 7 proofs, 7 unmistakable spiritual markers that confirm you are not lost. You are not stuck. You are not forgotten. You are being refined. And by the time you reach the end of this prophetic word, you will understand why the wilderness feels so unfamiliar, and why it is also the holiest place you could be. And as this truth settles into the deepest parts of you, I want you to recognize something even more profound. You didn't walk into this wilderness. God led you into it. Not to harm you, not to weaken you, but to draw you closer to the sound of His voice in a way the noise of your former season never allowed. Because if your life had stayed busy, if everything had continued as usual, if the people you leaned on never drifted, if the plans you made didn't unravel, you would have kept moving at a pace that made it impossible to hear the whisper God reserved specifically for this moment in your life. The wilderness didn't silence your world by accident. God silenced it so you could finally hear Him without interference. There is a holy intention behind every quiet day you've endured, every unanswered question, every lonely night, every moment when it felt like heaven was distant. What you perceived as absence was actually God clearing the atmosphere so His presence could be unmistakable. Because before God refines your life, He refines your hearing. Before He shapes your destiny, He sharpens your discernment. Before He elevates you publicly, He anchors you privately. And the wilderness is where He does it. This is why you've been feeling that strange pull inward, as if your soul is being rearranged from the inside out. It's why the things you once tolerated now irritate your spirit. It's why conversations feel different, why your desires have shifted, why your heart has been quieter but heavier at the same time. God is doing the kind of work that cannot be rushed, cannot be explained, and cannot be witnessed by crowds. Wilderness seasons are sacred because they strip away the illusion of control and leave only one truth standing. God is your source. Not people, not opportunities, not your own strength, not your own plans. And when He becomes your source, everything else begins to align. So if you have felt spiritually exposed, emotionally raw, mentally stretched, or painfully aware of what is missing rather than what remains, do not misinterpret the process. Heaven is closer than it has ever been. You are not wandering. You are being guided step by sacred step. In fact, the very tension you feel is evidence of His hand upon you. Every delay is measured. Every silence is intentional. Every closed door is protective. Every removal is strategic. God is rearranging your life with precision, not punishment. And the wilderness, though uncomfortable, is the womb of your becoming. It is where identities are rewritten. It is where assignments are clarified. It is where false attachments fall away. It is where your dependence shifts from earthly stability to divine sustenance. So as we move deeper into this message, I want you to hold this truth in your spirit. God brought you here because something in you is too valuable to be left unrefined. Something in you is being shaped for a future you cannot yet see. Something in you is maturing, stretching, awakening. You are not being reduced. You are being prepared. And soon, the purpose of this wilderness will no longer feel hidden. It will unfold with clarity, proof by proof, until you see exactly why God chose this season to refine you. Now that your spirit is awake to the truth that God Himself led you into this season, it's time to uncover what has been moving beneath the surface. Because your wilderness is not a random pause. It is a prophetic staging ground, a place where heaven is constructing something in you that will outlast storms, opposition, and time itself. When God orchestrates a wilderness season, He isn't trying to break you. He is trying to separate you from everything that could break you later. This is the uncomfortable grace He places on those He is preparing for greater assignments. It is the grace that removes artificial comfort, unsteady support systems, and the illusions that blinded you in previous seasons. Nothing around you looks the same because you are not meant to be the same. And here is the prophecy hidden in your wilderness. The truth the enemy hoped you'd never recognize. God is refining you because He is getting ready to trust you with more. More influence, more authority, more clarity, more spiritual weight, more responsibility tied to your calling. But before He places more in your hands, He reshapes the hands that will hold it. This is why the wilderness feels so dismantling. It is not stripping for the sake of lack, it is stripping for the sake of rebuilding. A holy deconstruction, a divine reset of your identity, your priorities, your desires, your endurance, your character. Think about what has quietly shifted in your life. Think about what no longer fits. Think about how your spirit has been restless, unsettled, unable to go back to what once felt normal. That's because God has placed you between who you used to be and who you are becoming. The wilderness is the hallway between seasons, the threshold where the old breaks off and the new begins forming. You can't see the full picture yet, but you can feel the tension of transformation stretching you. And here's something many never understand. Your wilderness is not just about removing what was hindering you. It is also about revealing what has been sleeping inside you. There are gifts you didn't know you carried, strength you didn't realize you possessed, discernment you didn't know had been growing in silence, authority you didn't know had been maturing beneath pressure. The wilderness pulls it all forward. God uses isolation to sharpen identity. He uses silence to amplify intuition. He uses uncertainty to teach surrender. He uses stillness to awaken spiritual vision. He uses discomfort to elevate dependence. And through this process, something powerful happens inside you. You stop living from your wounds and start living from your calling. This is why the wilderness feels both sacred and terrifying. It demands vulnerability. It forces you to face parts of yourself you tried to outrun. It exposes the fears you buried, the doubts you masked, the places where your trust was thin. But in exposing these things, God begins refining them, strengthening what was fragile, healing what was hidden, and stabilizing what was shaken. And while you may not see it clearly yet, heaven has already begun rearranging circumstances, aligning timing, and preparing the next chapter of your journey. The wilderness is the furnace where God forges those who will carry fire into their destiny. But here is the prophetic truth that shifts everything. Refining always precedes releasing. Transformation always precedes elevation. Obscurity always precedes assignment. You are not stuck, you are in transition. You are not forgotten, you are being focused. You are not losing, you are being lifted into alignment. Your wilderness is prophecy in motion. And when the refining is complete, you will not walk out the same. You will walk out lighter, sharper, clearer, stronger, marked by the very fire that tried to intimidate you. So now, with the foundation laid, it's time to go deeper. It's time to uncover not just what God is doing, but why He is doing it, and why the wilderness had to come exactly when it did. When you look at your life right now, at the quietness, the slowness, the stripping, the unfamiliarity, you may feel as though everything is unraveling. But spiritually, the opposite is happening. You are standing in the very place where some of the greatest biblical transformations began: the wilderness. It is a recurring pattern in the stories of those God entrusted with weighty purpose. Moses found his identity in the wilderness. David was shaped for kingship in the wilderness. Elijah heard God's whisper in the wilderness. John the Baptist emerged from the wilderness with fire in his voice. Jesus himself was refined and affirmed in the wilderness before his ministry began. And now, it's your turn. Not because you asked for it, not because you failed, not because you veered off course, but because the wilderness is God's chosen environment for those He is preparing to carry something sacred. The spiritual meaning of this season isn't hidden, it's layered. The wilderness strips away what is external so God can strengthen what is internal. It removes noise so God can sharpen your hearing. It replaces human validation with divine affirmation. And it reveals whether your foundation is built on sand or stone. You may think you are being emptied, but the truth is you are being repositioned. The wilderness is the hinge between who you were and who you must become in order to carry the next assignment on your life. Spiritually, here is what is happening. 1. Your identity is being purified. Everything that once defined you, your roles, your relationships, your routines, is being sifted so that only what is eternal remains. God removes counterfeit identities in the wilderness until your spirit can say, I am who God says I am, not who circumstances shaped me to be. 2. Your dependence is being redirected. In previous seasons, you learned to rely on people, on opportunities, on your own abilities. But the wilderness recalibrates your trust. It teaches you that God is not simply a provider, He is the source. When everything else is stripped away, you discover that God is not an option. He is everything. 3. Your discernment is being sharpened. Without distractions, your spiritual sensitivity comes alive. You start noticing things you missed before the subtle shifts, the internal warnings, the divine nudges. The wilderness heightens your awareness of God's movement. 4. Your desires are being realigned. What used to attract you no longer satisfies you. What used to entertain you now feels empty. This is spiritual evidence that your appetites are being transformed, adjusted to match your calling rather than your comfort. And perhaps the most profound depth of all, the wilderness reveals what you cannot carry with you into the next season. Certain relationships, habits, mindsets, and emotional attachments cannot survive where God is taking you. The wilderness exposes them not to shame you, but to free you. God is too strategic to let you drag old weights into a new chapter. You may not like the unfamiliarity. You may not enjoy the solitude. But what is happening inside you is so valuable that even heaven has paused to watch. God is crafting something eternal in you, something that cannot be stolen, shaken, or replicated, something that will support the assignment He is preparing to release through you. This is why the wilderness matters. This is why it feels sacred. This is why it feels heavy, because it is holy ground for transformation. And now that the spiritual meaning has been laid bare, it's time to illuminate the unmistakable signs, the proofs that confirm you are truly in a wilderness season meant for refining. Now that the spiritual depth of this season is clear, let's unveil the unmistakable signs, 7 proofs that confirm you are not imagining your wilderness, but truly experiencing a divine refining. These signs are not coincidences. They are not emotional fluctuations. They are spiritual indicators that heaven is at work in you. And as you hear them, something in your spirit will bear witness, because these signs do not visit everyone. They arrive only for those whom God is preparing for greater purpose. Proof 1. Your usual sources of comfort no longer satisfy you. Things that once soothed you now feel empty. Distractions you used to run to no longer quiet your spirit. Even people who used to fill a void can no longer reach the deeper places within you. This is not emotional withdrawal. This is God detoxing your spirit from counterfeit comforts so you can hunger for Him again. You are being rewired from the inside out. Proof 2. Isolation is increasing even without your intention. You've noticed people pulling back, conversations fading, invitations decreasing. And it's not because you did something wrong. God is creating separation. In the wilderness, God removes the voices that would interfere with His shaping. He pulls you away from noise so He can refine your identity without outside influence. You are not being abandoned. You are being singled out for transformation. Proof 3. Old habits or patterns feel spiritually impossible to return to. You've tried to go back to the version of you that once felt familiar, but something inside resists it now. You feel a deep discomfort whenever you attempt to fit into old cycles. This internal resistance is the Holy Spirit signaling that the old season is closed. Your spirit refuses to shrink back into who it has outgrown. Proof 4. You feel spiritually exposed like nothing in you can be hidden. Thoughts, insecurities, wounds, desires. Everything is coming to the surface. The wilderness has a way of revealing what you've buried. This exposure is not to shame you, but to heal you. God can only refine what you are willing to acknowledge. This vulnerability is evidence of divine surgery, not spiritual failure. Proof 5. Divine disruptions have interrupted your plans. Doors that should have opened, didn't. Opportunities that were certain, stalled. Relationships you depended on, shifted. What you thought would remain, changed. These disruptions are not rejection, they are redirection. God is preventing you from building a future on foundations that cannot hold your destiny. He is breaking alignment with anything that would break you later. Proof 6. Your inner hunger for clarity and purpose has intensified. Even though everything around you feels quiet, your spirit feels restless. You sense you're meant for more, destined for something deeper. You can't ignore the stirring anymore. This inner cry is spiritual awakening, God stretching your capacity for what He is about to entrust to you. Your purpose is pressing against the walls of your current season. Proof 7. You feel God's nearness even when He feels silent. This is the most mysterious sign of all. Even in days when you feel distant or unsure, there is still that unexplainable awareness, an inner knowing that God is extremely close, watching, guiding, shaping. Silence is not absence. It is preparation. He is closer in the wilderness than in any other season. These 7 proofs are not random experiences. They are heaven's fingerprints. They mark you as someone God is actively refining, someone whose life is shifting into deeper alignment with divine purpose. And now that you recognize the signs, it's time to confront the deeper reality. The wilderness does not simply test you, it reveals the hidden battles within you. Now that the signs are clear, we must step into the part of the wilderness most people never talk about: the hidden challenges. These are the battles no one sees. The internal storms you face alone, the emotional weight you carry without explanation. They are not the obvious struggles of life. They are the spiritual pressures that only arise when God is refining someone He intends to elevate. Because the wilderness doesn't just separate you externally, it exposes you internally. And what you're feeling right now, the tension inside you, the heaviness, the confusion, the inner stretching, these are not signs of weakness. They are the markers of divine preparation. Let's bring these hidden challenges into the light. The challenge of silence. One of the hardest parts of the wilderness is when heaven feels quiet. You pray, but the answers feel slower. You seek, but the instructions come in fragments. This silence is not rejection, it is recalibration. God is teaching you to discern His presence beyond emotion, beyond noise, beyond the immediate. He is strengthening your ability to trust Him, even when you can't trace Him. This kind of faith can only be forged in silence. The challenge of emotional weight. There are days when everything feels heavier than it should. Simple tasks feel draining. Decisions feel overwhelming. You wake up with a weight you can't put into words. This heaviness is not depression. It is spiritual pressure. Your spirit is expanding, stretching, adjusting to a new capacity God is forming within you. You're not breaking down. You're breaking open. The challenge of letting go. Perhaps the most painful part of the wilderness is surrendering what you still wanted to hold. People you thought would stay, plans you believed would unfold, identities you once wore comfortably. Letting go feels like losing pieces of yourself, but in truth, you are shedding skins that no longer fit the person God is shaping. Letting go isn't loss, it's liberation. The challenge of internal warfare. In quiet seasons, the real battles begin inside your own mind. Doubts rise. Fear whispers. Old insecurities you thought you overcame resurface. The enemy often attacks during wilderness seasons because he knows you are closer to breakthrough than you realize. But even this warfare is allowed by God not to destroy you, but to reveal the parts of you that still need strengthening. You are learning to fight with authority, not anxiety. The challenge of misinterpretation. People don't always understand what you're going through. They may think you're distant, distracted, or disengaged. They may misread your silence as disinterest or your withdrawals as emotional coldness. But the truth is, you are being separated for refinement, not isolation. Not everyone is meant to understand this season. Not everyone is meant to accompany you through it. Your path is narrow because your calling is deep. These hidden challenges are not signs that something is wrong. They are evidence that God is refining you from the inside out. Each battle has purpose. Each moment of discomfort contains revelation. And though the wilderness stretches you, it also strengthens you in ways comfort never could. But God never refines without instruction. And now that your spirit is aware of what is happening, it's time to step into the prophetic steps He is asking you to take. Now that the hidden challenges have been uncovered, your spirit is ready to receive what God has been waiting to reveal, the divine instructions for this season. Because the wilderness is not meant to be wandered aimlessly. It is navigated. And those who navigate it well emerge refined, focused, and unshakably aligned with their calling. These instructions are not rules. They are invitations, guidelines shaped by heaven to help you move through this season with clarity instead of confusion, strength instead of discouragement, and purpose instead of fear. Listen closely, because these words are for you. Instruction 1. Slow down and let God set the pace. In past seasons, you may have rushed, pushed, carried burdens prematurely, or tried to make things happen on your own timeline. But in the wilderness, God slows your pace intentionally. This is the season where you learn to move at His rhythm instead of your own. Resist the urge to force outcomes. Resist the temptation to outrun discomfort. Let God determine the timing, the steps, and the unfolding. Your pace is part of your refinement. Instruction. Embrace solitude instead of resisting it. Solitude isn't punishment, it's preparation. God speaks differently in stillness. He reveals things that busy seasons conceal. Make room for quiet moments. Don't fight the separation. Use this time to sit with God, to listen, to process, to let your inner world become uncluttered. Your spirit needs silence to hear what's next. Instruction 3. Release what God has been loosening from your hands. Letting go does not mean you have failed. It means God is removing weights that would hinder your next chapter. Release the relationships that drifted. Release the expectations that collapsed. Release the identities you've outgrown. Holding on to expired things will only delay your emergence. Trust that anything God removes is making room for something greater. Instruction 4. Lean into spiritual disciplines with fresh intention. Not out of obligation, but out of deepening desire. Pray with honesty. Read with openness. Sit in God's presence until your thoughts settle. Journal the revelations you sense. Your spirit is more sensitive in the wilderness. Feed it intentionally. Instruction 5. Confront what God is revealing, not what you're trying to avoid. The wilderness exposes hidden fears, old patterns, and unresolved wounds because God wants to heal them. Don't suppress what is coming to the surface. Don't run from the inner work. Lean into the discomfort. It's pointing to areas God is transforming. You can't carry old wounds into a new assignment. Instruction 6. Guard your spirit from unnecessary noise. Be careful with what you let into your mind and heart in this season. Not every opinion deserves influence. Not every voice carries truth. Not every distraction is harmless. You are spiritually sensitive right now. Protect your peace with intention. Your clarity depends on your purity of focus. Instruction 7. Stay expectant, even when nothing seems to be happening. The wilderness often feels still, but heaven is never inactive. God does some of His greatest work underground. Stay expectant. Stay open. Stay ready. Your posture of faith is shaping the atmosphere for what's coming. The refining is not random. It's strategic. The silence is not empty. It's purposeful. The slowdown is not stagnation. It's alignment. And now that you carry the divine instructions, it's time for God to reassure you of something vital. You are not walking this terrain alone. As you receive these divine instructions, there is something God wants to settle deep within you, something that will anchor you through every remaining step of this wilderness season. You are protected, you are covered, and you are not walking through this refining alone. Even when you feel the weight of silence, even when you feel the sting of separation, even when the path ahead seems unclear, God has not taken His eyes off you for a single moment. Not one. You are in a season where His presence may feel quieter, but His protection is louder than ever. Heaven has encircled you with intentionality, with safety, with a shield that darkness cannot penetrate. If you could see what God has blocked, you would worship differently. If you could see the dangers you never had to face, you would breathe easier. If you could see the battles fought on your behalf while you slept, you would understand that you are more guarded than you realize. The wilderness is not a place of abandonment. It is a place of divine supervision. Every step you take is monitored. Every transition is measured. Every challenge is filtered. Nothing is allowed to reach you unless it serves your refinement. This is why certain attacks didn't land. Why certain people couldn't stay close enough to harm you. Why certain situations that could have broken you instead passed you by. God's hand has been over you, limiting what the enemy can do, restricting what life can throw at you, creating barriers you never even noticed. You are not unprotected. You are shielded with intention. And even in the moments when you felt weakest, God was surrounding you with strength. You were carried through nights you thought you barely survived. You were held in places where your heart felt fragile. You were supported in ways you didn't see, guided in whispers you didn't realize came from Him. Your wilderness is wrapped in divine presence. Do not mistake dryness for distance. Do not mistake silence for separation. Do not mistake slow movement for stagnation. God is closer now than He has ever been. He is guarding the work He is doing in you. He is protecting the version of you that is emerging. He is shielding the calling that is forming. You are not falling apart. You are being held together by hands you cannot see. And soon the purpose of this protection will become clear, because the wilderness is not your final destination. It is the passageway to transformation, and everything in you is shifting toward fulfillment. Now that the assurance has settled in your spirit, you're ready to see what all of this has been leading toward, the transformation that takes place when your wilderness refining completes its assignment. Because the wilderness is not where your story ends. It is where your next chapter gains momentum. It is where the old version of you dissolves and the true anointed, sharpened version of you begins to rise. Transformation in the wilderness is rarely loud. It happens slowly, quietly, subtly, until one day you realize you are no longer who you were when this began. Something inside you has shifted. Something has strengthened. Something has awakened. And when the refining is complete, here is what begins to unfold. That you become spiritually unshakable. The doubts that once overwhelmed you lose their voice. The fears that used to paralyze you no longer hold power. You emerge with a clarity that cannot be manipulated, a confidence that cannot be stolen, and a peace that no circumstance can disrupt. Your identity becomes rooted in something eternal, not external. That you step into clarity like you've never known before. The questions that haunted you begin to resolve. The fog that clouded your vision lifts. The confusion that once weighed you down dissolves as God reveals direction, purpose, and timing. You will know where to go next, not because you guessed, but because God aligned every step. You carry a new level of authority. Wilderness seasons teach you to confront inner battles, and once you've conquered what was inside you, walk with authority over what is outside. You speak differently. You pray differently. You discern differently. Your presence carries weight because it carries the evidence of someone who has been with God in hidden places. Your voice becomes one heaven trusts. Your heart becomes lighter, freer, healed. Old wounds lose their sting. Old bitterness stops poisoning your spirit. Old cycles lose their control. God restores the places that once felt broken, filling them with strength, compassion, and deeper wisdom. You will walk out of this season with a heart that feels new. Your purpose begins to unfold in real time. Doors that were once shut begin to open with ease. Connections appear that align with your calling. Ideas flow, provision comes. Opportunities that felt impossible suddenly begin to make sense. What once felt delayed now feels divinely timed. God unveils what He was preparing you for all along. People will notice the difference, not because you try to show it, but because transformation shines without effort. Those who encounter you will feel the change. They'll sense the depth, the maturity, the strength in your presence. Some will be drawn to it. Others will be intimidated by it. But no one will mistake it. You are not who you once were. You finally step into the season the wilderness prepared you for. The refining ends where fulfillment begins. You step out of survival mode and into purpose mode. You stop wondering who you are and begin walking confidently in your identity. You stop questioning your worth and begin operating in your calling. Your life becomes aligned with heaven's blueprint. This is the moment the wilderness was leading you toward, the moment where transformation becomes visible, where purpose becomes tangible, where identity becomes undeniable. And now, as this season shifts and the refining nears completion, all that remains is for heaven to speak blessing, affirmation, and strength over your journey ahead. As this message draws to a close, let these final words settle into you like oil soaking into every place that has been weary, uncertain, or stretched by this wilderness season. You are not leaving this moment the same way you entered it. Something in you has shifted. Something has awakened. Something has aligned. So hear these affirmations in your spirit as if heaven itself is speaking them over you. You are being refined, not diminished. You are being strengthened, not broken. You are being separated, not abandoned. You are being prepared, not punished. You are being shaped, not sidelined. You carry a destiny that requires depth. You carry a calling that requires clarity. You carry an anointing that requires purification. And every moment of your wilderness has been part of that preparation. You are rising from this season with new authority. You are emerging with sharper discernment. You are stepping forward with deeper confidence. You are walking into your next chapter with a spirit that cannot be shaken. What God has begun in you will not be wasted. What He has refined in you will not be undone. What He has prepared in you will soon be revealed. So as you step out of this prophetic moment, may strength fill your heart. May peace guide your mind. May clarity rest upon your spirit. May courage rise in your steps. And may God's presence go before you in every direction. You are ready for what's next. You are aligned for what's coming. You are prepared for the season that awaits you. And you will walk into it with grace, wisdom, and divine confidence. If this message spoke to your spirit, take a moment to comment below and share which part resonated with you the most. Your words may confirm something for someone else on their journey. And if you want more prophetic messages like this, make sure to subscribe, like, and stay connected. There is so much more God is getting ready to speak into your life. Blessings to you, chosen one. Your wilderness is not your ending. It was your refining. Your becoming has already begun.